Think of two things that go hand in hand. Salt and pepper, beans and rice, tofu and chips, oat milk and coffee, veganism and ethics, and of course, ex-vegans and spirituality. Now look, spirituality means different things to different people, and it's certainly not an inherently bad thing. Meditation, mindfulness, yoga, there are a lot of practices tied in with spirituality which are undeniably of great benefit. However, while these practices have spiritual connotations, well, they're also supported by science as well. But in this video, I'm referring to the use of spirituality as a facade to hide someone's true intentions. How those who claim to have the least ego and the most connection with the natural world around them are ironically, in fact, driven by ego, feelings of self-grandeur, and actually a disconnection from rationality. You know, the people who believe themselves to be on a journey so big that even the proclaimers think that it's excessive, and who believe that they have an awareness or connection above what others have or can even comprehend. While these people like to use words like authentic to try and convince people of their selfless integrity, in reality, they're more like waxworks in Madame Tussauds. They want to convince you that what you're looking at is something authentic, but in reality, it's just an uncanny wax shell. Hey everyone, I'm just interrupting briefly because as well as a strong aversion to anti-science BS, well, I also have a strong aversion to underarm BO, which is why I love Wild deodorant. Wild products are sustainable, cruelty-free, and vegan, and they actually work. The scents are great and it lasts all day, and Wild uses compostable bamboo cartridges, meaning that when you finish a cartridge such as the one I have here as an example, well, you can compost the empty one and then just install a new one into your reusable cartridge holder. My favorite scents are Fresh Cotton and Sea Salt and Thunderstorm, which is the one that I have here, which was a limited edition scent, but is now a permanent scent due to popular demand, which I'm delighted about because actually Thunderstorm is my personal favorite. Wild works on a flexible subscription service and has worldwide shipping, meaning that you can get the refill cartridges sent directly to your home, and you can also update, change, or cancel your subscription at any time. If you use the code EDTHUNDER, where you can actually get 20% of all Wild products. So if great smelling sustainable deodorant that doesn't harm animals sounds good to you, then make sure to click the link in my description. All right guys, thank you so much to Wild for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get back to the video at hand. Now this video is inspired by Sophia Esperanza, who recently posted a video called Why I'm No Longer Vegan. Now, this video shocked quite a lot of people because actually Sophia used to be an outspoken animal rights activist. She rescued animals from slaughter, and she actually has an anti-speciesism tattoo on her arm. Long story short, Sophia is now currently a vegetarian.
I see plants as being the core central force of our food, of our vitality, and these vegetarian elements being somewhat of a gift for spending our life in stewardship to all life and creation.
So in this video, I'll be looking at how spirituality is weaponized as an excuse for exploiting animals, and why so often spirituality becomes the pseudoscientific stick that veganism is then beaten with. So let's begin.
I had a good little cry before this video because by the end of this recording, there will be a weight lifted. It's already starting to lighten. If you don't watch this entire video, and even if you do, what I say may not completely resonate. I accept that. I also released this once desire to be understood by millions of people unanimously, and exchanged that once desire to step into my own understanding that connects me deeper to my soul, the thread that I perceive as God.
Already we begin to see the inherent issues at play. The elevation of oneself and one's experience, the spiritual view of viewing yourself as divine and giving yourself a soul, which you refer to as God. Now, of course, self-love and pride are important, and we should champion ourselves and our abilities. However, when we view ourselves in the way that Sophia describes, we are creating an equivalent between ourselves and, well, an omniscient deity. But why does this matter? Well, it matters because it makes us believe that things like our intuition or our subjective feelings are the most important in determining how we should be living. And then from that point, we might then make claims like, I feel it in my soul, whimsical or I feel it in my heart. However, these subjective feelings are driven by our biases and by things like motivated reasoning. For example, Sophia has a brand where she sells vintage leather. When someone commented on a post of a leather item stating that data has shown that secondhand leather still contributes to demand for new leather, Sophia responded by saying this: "I lead with my heart, not always data." Now, veganism is an emotive issue and taps into emotions like empathy. But we should all be vegan because we use our heads as well as our hearts. It's not my heart that tells me that eating plant-based is better for the environment. It's the overwhelming, comprehensive, and to be frank, exceptionally impressive scientific research and data analysis carried out by the leading experts in the world. It's not my heart that tells me that eating plant-based is the best way to reduce bird flu and swine flu pandemic risk or antibiotic resistance, although there is a feeling in your heart that should compel you to eat plant-based. It's called angina. It's not even my heart that made me become vegan for the animals. I'm vegan for the animals because intellectually and rationally, it's the right thing to do. And why? Well, because we have the science and an intellectual understanding that animals feel pain, suffer, and are of course sentient beings deserving of moral consideration. Now, the French philosopher Descartes was horrifically cruel to animals because he viewed them as being automata. He lacked empathy for animals because he led with his subjective feelings and biases and ignored things like biological science. This is why we have empathy for animals. This is why we care about them morally, because of things like biology and evolution, substantiated fields of scientific research. We care about these animals emotionally because we know intellectually that we should. This is why pseudoscience is the enemy of veganism, because veganism and the benefits of a plant-based diet are grounded in and supported by science. So often these ex-vegans make appeals to pseudoscience like eating raw or using their heart and not their head. Take Tim Sheaf and Elise Parker, for example. Both said they ate salmon and then miraculously, pretty much immediately, felt better.
The first night after I had that salmon, I had a wet dream. I hadn't ejaculated in months. You know, just to be honest and open with everyone, that's turned something on within my body.
Listening to my intuitive pull of like salmon was just like the thing that I was appealed to me. I tried salmon. I had 8 ounces of salmon one night. I felt the best that I had in probably like 3 years.
Now, historically, Tim Sheaf has drunk his own urine, he did a month-long water fast, and he made a video about why he believes the earth is flat. What apparently he doesn't believe in, though, are blood tests, which would have been far more helpful than drinking urine. Although, who knows, maybe I'm just a NASA operative who wants to secretly distract you all from the realities of the ice wall. And then there's Yoga Girl. Just listen to her story of why she went back to eating eggs and then ultimately other animal products. It is honestly just something else.
One of our first days being at this little cabin, Leia sees this little really old little structure. She's like, "What's there?" And they're like, "Oh, that's the old chicken coop. But sorry, there's no eggs in there. We already collected the eggs this morning." She goes inside, she comes out, and she's holding one perfect egg. The lady is like, "Oh, that's so funny. I already collected the eggs today. Wow, that's a really special egg. You keep this one." And Leia holds this egg and she goes, "No, this one's for Mama. Mama, here." I was like, okay, well, this felt very much like a sign. It was just like, oh God, okay. We come home. I put the egg on my altar. I was drinking tea and I had the egg there next to my crystals and my things. I felt like I was going to go into a psychedelic ayahuasca ceremony or something. I felt like I was sitting there with some sort of shaman about to have a crazy holy experience. I peeled the egg. I took a bite and it was maybe the most delicious thing I've ever eaten in my whole entire life. That really was the beginning of the end of me being vegan.
It's so obnoxious and egoic to make out that her return to eating animal products was because of the universe sending her a sign, or that the universe was manifesting this for her. The only thing she's manifested is more suffering and death for animals. All of these examples are just ridiculous and speak to how self-absorbed spirituality is in fact an enemy to the animals. Now, one thing I will say about Sophia is that she didn't hide behind some bogus health claims. In fact, she was very upfront about how eating a plant-based diet has been hugely positive for her health. However, rather than going on a 30-day urine and water fast and then blaming veganism for why she doesn't feel so great, Sophia instead uses the word alignment to describe why she is now not against consuming dairy and eggs.
I lovingly threw out what I had been told, taught, screamed, and I got into my heart. And I set energetic boundaries. I erected a little podium within myself so I could hear my heart speak so loudly, so clearly. What do I, Sophia, consider as food? And where do my ethics, morals, and values intersect at that point? The reality is I consider everything to be food, all the way from the apple off of the tree to the animals that are in my house right now that I won't eat. I think it's pretty clear that I don't feel an alignment to eat meat or fish. However, what has been an exploration point for me for years, even as a strict vegan, were vegetarian elements.
This kind of language is incredibly common within spirituality. What am I in alignment with? What will bring abundance to me? Or what is my truth?
I took off the label vegan, but certainly not my love for animals, all things, all creation. In fact, I feel like I can love deeper now, not because my way is the best way or the only way or the highest standard. It's just my truth. And nothing feels better or more liberating than living in your truth.
But the question we should be asking ourselves is not what is my truth, but what is the truth? We should all be skeptical of our truth. Our truth might convince us to do terrible things or to believe in things that are absurd. For example, a religious fanatic believes that their truth makes it glorious for them to kill in the name of their god. Sophia's truth might eventually lead her to thinking that eating animals is actually something that she's in alignment with. I mean, for example, listen to what she says here.
Veganism, as I know it, as many people know it, places animals at the epicenter of an ideology. And I resonate more deeply with a philosophy that creates a synergistic, symbiotic relationship to mind, body, soul, earth, animals, other humans. Basically just putting everything at the center and not just animals. The whole picture.
Now compare that to what this farmer says to justify slaughtering animals. I am a part of nature, not above it. I choose to be within the food chain, not to stand outside of it. I think nature has given me a pretty good path to follow, just like it gave all the other creatures a path to follow to survive.
I would love for all of us to seriously consider Earth as a living, breathing, sentient being, because she is. We walk upon her. Does this knowing change how we move throughout life? We can infiltrate her vein-like systems. Does this knowing change how we treat her waters? Humans, we're like advanced cells living within her vast body, and we have this amnesia as to our role.
There is often a glamorization of nature, that it is some form of perfect entity, but it's easy to view something as beautiful when you don't have to engage with its negatives. We can glamorize nature because nature to us is going for walks in forests. It's listening to a stream run through an ancient woodland. It's birdwatching or going for a swim in a lake. It's not starving to death. It's not becoming injured and suffering terribly while you slowly die. It's not bacterial infections or predation. The irony is, Sophia and those who use these arguments claim that veganism as a movement fighting for animals is disconnected from nature, while the only reason she is able to actually romanticize nature so much is because she is disconnected. It's lovely seeing birds and insects, sitting among them for a little while and feeling connected. But then you go in your house, you use electricity, you satiate your hunger, you turn your heating on, you consume drinkable water, then of course you edit the footage you filmed on your camera using your laptop and then upload it to the internet.
I feel so overwhelmed in the most beautiful ways by this earth that it's as if I'm Earth experiencing herself.
This is the irony of this supposed deep connection. It stems from an idolization that occurs as a consequence of being safe from the reality of what it is that we are idolizing. When spirituality is used against veganism, it is often framed in such a way as to say that vegans are turning their back on nature, that we've lost our connection with the way that life is supposed to be, how life, death, killing, food are all intertwined, and we should honor that. Just take this clip from Yoga Girl as an example.
As a vegan, when we decide to step out of that cycle of life, the cycle of life that our ancestors have been a part of since the dawn of time, which involves death, like it involves life and it involves death. And we've separated ourselves from that almost entirely, like that doesn't have a place in the world anymore. And I'm starting to wrap my head around the fact that probably that isn't true.
It's so unbelievably convenient that you can come to this conclusion when it's not your life that's at stake. These ex-vegans all talk about the importance of rejecting labels as well. They get so hung up on the idea that they're being boxed in by a word. But calling veganism a label is again making it all about us. Veganism is just a word that describes an ethical position against the exploitation of animals, in the same way that the word anti-racist is a word that describes taking an ethical position against racism. You're not freeing yourself by not being vegan. You're just choosing to oppress someone else instead. And if you feel oppressed by the word vegan, imagine how the animals must feel. Who do you think is most boxed in? Who do you think is most constrained? Who is the most oppressed? Veganism is not a label for us. It's an ethical position for them. So you're not rejecting a label, you're rejecting an ethical position which was never about you. They portray being your authentic self and living your truth as something that is inherently good and moral. And that's just simply not true. The moral value of an action is determined by its consequences and the principles it upholds, not by simply adhering to one's personal beliefs or desires. By framing their return to eating animals or animal products as a form of personal emancipation, they're establishing a sense of victimhood and an immediate rejection of any valid critique. But if we just focus solely on Sophia, the feelings that she is connected with the earth and other animals by consuming dairy, eggs, and honey just simply doesn't hold up to scrutiny. Just take what Sophia says here about honey.
Honey from sacred bees on the perimeter of the lands that we tend to, free to come and go as they please, nourishing a respectful relationship to the beings that are the basis for the majority of the food that we eat today.
Now, honeybees are one species of bee among tens of thousands that exist. But more than that, introducing honeybees actually disrupts wild pollination. They monopolize floral resources, meaning there's not enough to go around for wild pollinators. They actually harm other wildlife and can negatively impact the reproduction of wild flowers. As experts at the Department of Zoology at Cambridge University put it, the crisis in global pollinator decline has been associated with one species above all, the western honeybee. Honeybees are artificially bred, agricultural animals similar to livestock such as pigs and cows. But this livestock can roam beyond any enclosures to disrupt local ecosystems through competition and disease. Keeping honeybees is an extractive activity. It removes pollen and nectar from the environment, which are natural resources needed by many wild species of bees and other pollinators. So where's this connection with the earth, the plants, the animals, and all life? If you're being guided by this feeling of being the earth viewing itself, why are you aligned to eat something that harms the very systems you feel so connected to? This is the problem with whimsical and farcical woo-woo. It's woo-woo. And by glorifying these products, she's reinforcing the commodity status of farmed animals and their bodies to her audience. She's normalizing the idea that these species of animals provide something for us. She even calls it our gift.
I see plants as being the core central force of our food, of our vitality, and these vegetarian elements being somewhat of a gift for spending our life in stewardship to all life and creation.
She's normalizing the commodification of animals by hiding it behind the facade of spiritual enlightenment. So now you have non-vegans watching this video who will continue to buy products like dairy, eggs, and honey and perpetuating animal suffering and animal slaughter because someone they look up to thinks it's okay to eat them as long as they come from happy animals, which is literally where everyone likes to pretend their animal products come from. So can we stop infecting veganism and animal rights with this egocentric spirituality? Not everything is about us. The animals don't care if you had an awakening with a shaman at an ayahuasca ceremony. They don't care about your journey, your truth, your feelings, your intuition, your soul, or your gods. They don't care. And it's arrogant and self-centered when we claim that we have some deep spiritual connection with animals in the natural world that we then use to justify eating animal products. I'm tired of having to constantly justify the merits of veganism to people just for some spiritualist, anti-science online person to declare they're not vegan anymore because, well, they had a premonition where an egg encrusted with crystals became a conduit for gods to tell them to start eating animal products again. I'm tired of ex-plant-based dieters eating a woo-woo raw diet and then complaining that doing so didn't make them feel very well. I'm tired of animals being mutilated, exploited, and murdered because some person online believes their intuition is more important than science and rationality. Sophia makes some points about how just because something is vegan doesn't make it automatically without harm. She points to some clothing fabrics that aren't from animals and how plastic is used for some plant products. But these are not criticisms of veganism as a philosophy. She's just being disingenuous. Nothing in this world is perfect, and if you don't like certain products, don't buy them. These are not reasons to stop being vegan and to make a video saying you're no longer vegan, and I think she knows that. These are just basic anti-vegan arguments that she will have dealt with for years when she was an activist. So I sincerely hope that Sophia sees the error in her logic and recognizes that what she is advocating for is not practically, logically, or ethically possible, and that she's actually encouraging people to continue harming animals. This is an incredibly frustrating topic because veganism at its heart is not only deeply rational, it's deeply logical and is indeed substantiated by scientific evidence. However, ex-vegans, so often when they make these videos online about why they're no longer vegan, don't make appeals to science or to substantiated ways of thought. They instead make appeals to things like subjective feelings or motivated reasoning or intuition, or indeed even to pseudo-scientific beliefs. So often these ex-vegans, before they became an ex-vegan, were eating a diet that was of raw plant foods, or in the case of Tim Sheaf and others like him, weren't eating food at all and were just drinking water and urine. Now, it seems ridiculous that I have to say this, but sadly it seems that I do. Veganism is not about eating raw. It's not about staring at the sun and avoiding sunscreen. It's not about any of these things. It's about protecting animals. And we should all view it as a major red flag when people start talking about pseudo-scientific things, because as soon as you disagree with science, you're actually turning your back on the pillars, the cornerstones of what holds veganism up, which is rational, logical thought that is supported by scientific literature. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the video, so I would love to hear in the comments what you think about what it is that I had to say. I'd also love to know what you think about the issues that I've discussed. What do you think about these ex-vegans, and do you think these pseudoscientific beliefs, like I do, are an enemy to veganism and an enemy to the animals? All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you all in the next video.